I prepared this message 3 weeks ago because I'm never sure of what's the date that I'd be speaking. And then I was so astounded when Wimla was taking last week's Bible study. It was like absolutely great preparation for the morning message that we're going to have, because she focused on exactly the same topic, self-pity. She highlighted the fact about the life of Paul, a person who was persecuted so much, rejected by his own people. He would go back to the whole provinces of Galatia and find out the very message he gave was rejected by them. He was beaten, he was slapped, he was persecuted in every form and finally in prison. But we never would find him wallowing in self-pity. And this morning, even as we were actually doing the worship, and I was saying, God, how beautiful. This morning, we will meditate on this one curse that seems to carry on in the lives of many, many of us. Wallowing in self-pity. It can become so bad that we can be like a pig, You know the problem of a pig, you clean him up, little later he'll find a bit of mud, he'll go and again lie down right there, because he enjoys that feeling of being dirty. When you value on self-pity, that's a problem. You enjoy that feeling, I don't want to be even out of that. I'm nobody. I'm used by everybody. I'm abused by everybody. That keeps happening. My husband uses me. My wife uses me. My kids use me. I am just wasted. And God's forgotten me, It can become so acute that nobody can speak to you. Your children can't speak to you. Your husband can't speak to you. Your friends can't speak to you because you're so convinced that you're wronged. And this is like a curse. In some people, it's so frequent that they cannot be used by God in any form of ministry. Because God can't use people who is so full of themselves and so full of self-pity that he doesn't know what to do, right? Let's start with the story of Joshua. You know the story of Joshua? Very interesting joke, There was a Sunday school teacher, a Sunday school inspector, go to Sunday school. And, the teacher says, why don't you ask John anything? This guy is so smart. So he says, John, can you tell who broke the walls of Jericho? John said, I did not. And I do not know who broke it. The inspector was surprised, saying, what is this kid saying? And the teacher said, see, John comes from a very, very good family. I know the family for many years. If John says he did not break it, I can assure he did not break it. So he was so upset. He went to the pastor. And he talked to him and said, this is what I heard. And the pastor said, listen, please don't create any problems. His father is a well-to-do businessman. He supports the church so much. I can assure you the family has nothing to do with the breaking of the wall. So finally, it went to the synod. And after 1 year, the synod wrote, we had several committee meetings. We're willing to compensate the loss. We will definitely put back the wall of Jericho if you just tell us how much the expense is. So I hope you heard about Joshua. He was the man responsible for breaking the walls of Jericho through God, this morning. So sometimes in Sunday school, you can come across very interesting stories, right? I don't know if you heard of this one. This kid went to Sunday school and came back, and his mother asked, what did they teach you this morning? They told me, they taught us about Commander Moses. He said, really? And what did they say? He said, it was amazing. These children of Israel, I don't know why they call them children, because I think the adults were missing, but they all were moving forwards, and they were moving forward, and suddenly they looked back and they saw the Egyptian army chasing them. They ran to Commander Moses. Moses took his walkie-talkie and said, Navy, put on the pontoon bridges. They put the bridges across the sea. And as they were walking and they went on the other side, Moses said, go into hiding, Air Force, be on alert. And these guys just crossed. He said, bomb the bridges were bombed, everybody died, and the children of Israel went to victory. The mom was shocked. She said, is that what the Sunday school teacher taught you? And he said, if I told you what the Sunday school teacher taught me, you would never believe that story. So I hope this morning you believe in truth that God is a God of miracles, right? Right? We can go back and say, that's okay, but it never happens. Or we believe, I believe in a God of miracles, right? I believe that this is He who raised Jesus Christ from the dead, and that Spirit dwells in me, who can transform me. I am seated in the heavenly places with God, and I'm blessed with every spiritual blessing. I am not destined to live in self-pity, right? That is our inheritance. And that's what Brother Monsi was, doctor. I mean, you change your specs frame and he looks so old and elegant, and you took almost a message. I thought whether I was speaking or you were speaking, but it doesn't matter. But the bottom line is, this is what he drove home this morning, that this is our inheritance. Don't let anybody steal that message this morning, right? That should never, ever happen, right? So Joshua sent men from Jericho to spy out on the town of Ai that was east of Bethel. And so Joshua sent these spies. We know the spy story in Jericho and what all happened. Now this is a second set of spies. When they returned, they told Joshua, there is no need for all of us to go. It won't take more than 2,000 or 3,000 men to attack Ai, since there are so few that we don't have to make all our people struggle. So approximately 3,000 warriors were sent, but they were defeated. These were the big guys. They had razed Jericho to the ground. That wall which was invincible was shattered. There was nothing living that was left in Ai. Neither animal, there was no man, there was no child, everything was destroyed. They chased the Israelites out of the gates as far as the quarries. They killed about 36 when they were retrieving down the slope. The Israelites were paralyzed with fear by the turn of events, and their courage melted away. For the first time, after a great victory, they were seeing defeat. Devastated people. Joshua and the elders tore their clothes in dismay. What did they do? Can you repeat? What did they do? They tore their clothes in dismay. What did they do next? They threw dust on their heads. What did they do? Threw dust on their heads, right? And they bowed face down on the ground before the ark of God till evening. Can you imagine that? Clothes torn, dust on the face, howling on the ground. Doing what? Complaining. Right? Look at that. Then Joshua cried out, "O sovereign Lord, why did you bring us across the Jordan River if you are going to let the Amorites kill us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side." Who's saying? Who's telling this? Who was Joshua? The leader. The man who followed Moses. And today he's saying, you should have kept us back in Egypt, right? For when the Canaanites and all the other people living in the land hear about it, they will surround us, wipe off our name off the face of the earth. Then what will happen to the honor of your great name? Can you tell that last line? And then, what did they say? What will happen to whose honor? God's honor. What is Joshua telling God in one line, if you can say it? What is Joshua telling God? God, how can you be so? What's he saying? God, how can you be so? Loudly, I want to hear it. How can you be so? He's saying, God, what will happen to the honor of your great name? So what's he telling God? God, how can you be so dishonorable? No. How can he be so stupid? How can he be so irresponsible? How can he be so foolish? Will anybody with wisdom do that? What will happen to your name? You forget about us. Don't care about me. It's not important. At least think about yourself. Very often we get this complaint. Now, the way you are talking, what will people think about you? You don't look like a doctor anymore. I don't know. Today somebody may say, why did he talk so long? Pulling his wife's leg. Both our wives will be looking at the clocks. We know we have overstepped. Monsi and me don't know when to stop. Our wives know when we should stop. So we tend not to look at them, very often. So, look at this. This is the problem always with us, right? We can cry to God, lie down over there and say, God, what are you doing? Why is it that I'm in this state today? Haven't you watched me? Joshua would say, haven't you watched me? I gave up everything. I took your rebellious people. After Moses went, I was their leader. You told me to read the word, I kept reading it. Yeah, I was doing that. Didn't I honor every word I said? These complaining people, and what have you done to me? Publicly embarrass me? This did not happen in Jericho, which was a large city. Small city, not big enough. And I want you to understand this one truth. This is something that will happen over and over again. After a great victory, it will be a small breeze that drops you. Because of one thing. After a great victory, you're so proud that you totally forget that it is God who gave that victory in your life. Look at these people. We don't need many people. Hey, we did a great job in Jericho. We are this awesome, powerful army that raised everything to the ground. We need just 3,000 people. God had completely disappeared from their lives. And this will happen. After a great ministry, after a great message, you'll have a big argument with your wife as you go back, It's not a lie. It'll happen over and over again. Just when you think you did an amazing job, a great healing ministry, a great time of prophecy, and you come back, Satan knocks you the breeze. Because something happens at that point where you start taking glory for yourself. The word of God says, God opposes the proud. Israelites who were terrified had become a proud group of people who took the credit of the victory onto themselves. Now look at the next thing. Okay, then they said, and let's just go down. So the problem here is, what's the problem with God or with Joshua? With Joshua, right? But whenever we are in self-pity, the problem is God. We are so full of ourselves. We are so sure that we are the suffering group whom God has decided to persecute. And we will think of all these things. Go, consider it pure joy when I go through difficult time. And God is telling there is no difficult times. You decided to make it difficult for yourself. It's almost like you decided to take off all the air from your tire and you start driving it and say, I want the road to be bumpy, He said, seriously, why are you doing this? I've given you everything to live well. And I've given you enough people in the world to show us examples, right? Can play that video. And this is how we pray. Hey, where is the guy? Vishal, you're supposed to run this for me. Vishal disappeared, Look at that. This is exactly how we behave before God. And you're so upset that nobody's paying attention. And you're so angry, your wife doesn't pay attention, your husband doesn't pay attention, your colleagues don't pay attention, and nobody's paying attention, and you are screaming and wallowing for something we don't even know. And the parents decide the best thing is let him wallow for some more time, and he'll settle down, If you start jumping at all these tantrums, you'll go crazy. And God is not truly impressed by this activity, And I just want to think of this. Let's see what God tells her. But God said to Joshua, get up. Why are you lying on the face like this? Get up. First of all, stop wallowing in this big, they say drama queen, I know what they call. What's all this drama for? You have a problem, let's talk it over. Why, throwing your clothes, tearing your clothes, lying on the ground, screaming, rolling down? God, what have you done to your great? You embarrassed me publicly. What did people think when you spoke that? What did my friends think about me? I have problems with colleagues. When I talk something, why did you insult me before others? So I never even thought I insult you. You're just being firm about something you asked. That's it. Oh my God, you insult me. Husbands say wives insulted them. Wives say husbands insulted them. It happens all the time. And we are so upset. And here God says, first of all, get up. Why are you lying on your face like this? Do you know Israel has sinned? Why did Joshua not know Israel had sinned? Tell me, why did they not know that Israel had sinned? Why did he know that one man sinned? He didn't know that. Why? What is the mistake he made? He did not go to God and inquire of God. He decided the victory is ours. Guys, go spy I. That was where the problem came. Do you know they say the people who pray the least and they spend the least time in actual meditation are preachers. They read the word of God to teach. They don't internalize it. I'm not joking. It's statistically proven. They're so excited saying, I'm preaching, I'm preaching, I'm preaching. There's no time to talk to God. And God says, imagine your kid comes home from vacation, from hostel. He's preaching and preaching and preaching, no time sitting and talking to you. Do you like this kind of kids? Sometimes God said, listen to me, I'll tell you, and you preach. Don't go there and preach whatever you say and say, God told me, Once you say, God told me, it's very challenging, Sometimes it happens, my wife spends a lot more time in prayer. She said, God told me, then I'm scared. And we can't even have the argument any further. Now I'm not arguing with wife, I'm arguing with God, you see. It's a bit more challenging at that time. God told me, right? But often, and this was the problem with Joshua, he just felt, I think we don't even need to pray. We guys are doing so well. Our problems are moved out. Our kids are excelling in their study. My business is doing well. I'm doing so well. I don't even need to inquire of God. I can pretend, but not true. So here's the problem. And he says that they have not only stolen, but they have lied about it, hidden the things among their own belongings, and that's why the Israelites are running from the enemies in defeat. For now, Israel has been set apart for destruction. I will not remain with you any longer unless you destroy these things that were set apart for destruction. Where was the problem? Let's go to the next slide. So where was the problem? Then the Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid or discouraged. Take all your fighting men. This is later. What happens in between? Sin had to be purged. One man sinned, but Israel was held responsible. You want the church to grow? Every one of us will be transformed. You will see things and miracles happening in the church that has never happened. You go to a church where half the people are sinning, you'll see nothing happening there. You can fight it, you can stand on your head, it will not happen because God said Israel has sinned. He didn't say one man called Achan had sinned. He didn't say, Joshua, you sinned. He said the whole nation of Israel has sinned because this command was the whole nation. And you, Joshua, should have inquired. I had have taken Achan out. I had have brought the things out. Maybe Achan may have even been relieved because he said, throw those things, destroy it. But Achan would die. His family would die. His wife would die. His children would die. And that's not a problem of sin. Not only do you die, you become a curse and a stench for your family, for your children, and they go together. And when you're a blessing, they grow together. I want you to understand this, church. It's your choice. Do we grow together as one? Let's keep coming back. But God would change everything down. God would transform everything for them. So what was the chain of event? Joshua forgot the reason for Jericho's victory. Every time when you go into self-pity, the first step that happens, you start forgetting what God has done in your life. You start forgetting the blessings in your life. You start forgetting the fact that you were nothing and God raised you into this position. You start forgetting the inheritance you have in Jesus Christ and you start looking for comfort somewhere else. The day you start looking for comfort in your husband, in your wife, in your colleagues, in your children, you will go through this. Because the only source of genuine comfort is the source of living waters and not broken cisterns. This is what God will tell to Jeremiah. My people have given up the source of living water and gone into broken cisterns. Are you looking for joy and peace in broken cisterns? In hobbies, in games, in companionship, others. If you are a believer, you will find it difficult because God will ensure that you do not last too long. God is a jealous God. And He wants you to understand every time complete joy, peace, happiness, and fulfillment only comes in Jesus Christ. Then Joshua started trusting in his own confidence. It's a problem with all of us. we start thinking about psychotherapy and things to do and not really going back to God and does not lean on God but his own understanding. Proverbs, what is it? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lead not into your own understanding, and he shall direct your paths. Beautiful example of a man who walked with God, who knew the Lord, who saw miracles, decided to lean on his own understanding. 3,000 people are enough for I. And God said, even your whole army is not enough for I if I am not with you. I want you to understand this truth. The most loving husband, the most kindest wife, the best of your colleagues cannot match up to God's love. If you have not discovered that love, you will go into depression. And that's why David says in Psalm 15, God, return to me the joy of your salvation. As soon as I start missing it, I start Bathshebas, I'll start finding, hoping that they will give me the joy I want. I don't know what your Bathsheba is and where you're looking for joy. But if it's outside Jesus Christ, I can assure you, you will never, ever be satisfied. So what is the problem? Because of this, he doesn't realize that there was sin in the camp. Starts blaming God like all of us do. But I want you to understand this truth. God doesn't change. He is the same yesterday. He's the same today. He's the same. He emptied himself that I would be full. He took the agony in the Garden of Gethsemane that you don't have to go through that. He was separated from his Father that you should never be separated. And today God is telling me, can you set that right in your life? The problem is always us and not God. Right? A sin that takes you away from the joy of his salvation is the sin of entitlement. I am entitled to things. And you go into self-pity. I am entitled to more love from my department. Sometimes I'll come and tell my wife, I feel so depressed. I'm only giving. I don't even hear a thank you from them. I am entitled to their thank yous. I am entitled to greater honor. I am entitled to greater respect. I am entitled to more time from my wife. I am entitled to more love. I am entitled for so many things. And the spirit of entitlement destroys everything. And your Father in heaven, when he sent his Son, gave him no entitlements. He humbled himself and became a servant. Let's go to another story. You know, there's a prophet at Tremble, right? This is about the prophet of Baal. Yeah, I get confused between Elijah and Elisha. Wimla, this is Elisha, Elijah. Okay, I have this problem with Jah and Shah. I wish they had two names, little more apart, you know. So it's Elijah, right? Huh? Okay. Now, I really trembled, you know. This was a prophet that could just about do anything. Can you imagine this man running scared? And this Bible talks about self-pity in him. So one good thing is don't feel too bad today because you have self-pity. All these guys went through it. The big ones did it. But don't feel happy and say, because they did it, so let me also do it. We freely have the Spirit, which was not accessible for everyone. And they say, so they prepared one of the bulls and placed it on the altar. They called to the name of Baal from morning till noontime, "O Baal, answer us." But there was no reply, and they danced, and they hobbled, and they did all kind of things. And they shouted louder, and they cut themselves. Blood gushed out, but the sacrifice remained the same. Then it goes on when it comes to Elijah. And at the usual time for the offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked to the altar and prayed, "O Lord God, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God that you are the God in Israel, and I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command." Immediately the fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven, burnt up the young bull, the wood, the stones, and the dust. It even licked up the water in the trench. And the people saw it, and they fell down and they cried, "The Lord, He is God, and He is God." What a powerful miracle. Really wonderful if you could see that, no? Have an argument with your wife and say something, and fire of God comes and burns the kitchen down, you know. That would be pretty awesome, right? I'm just joking, you know. I know many Christians would have loved that. curse you, boom, gone. Wow, that would be like awesome, right? God doesn't do that. I think many Christians are disappointed. They have a fight with somebody, boom. What do you say? Some churches will be burnt down completely by now. Boom, bam, nobody left. Both sides firing, missiles. In the end of the day, but it doesn't happen. But just see, look at this. You would just be so excited, nothing can touch you. Look at the next moment. And when Ahab went home, he told whom? His wife, Jezebel. Right? Guys, if you're scared of your wife, don't worry. Kings also were scared of the wife. Jezebel was a terror. Right? And he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way he killed all the prophets of Baal. A little lower. And Jezebel sent this message to Elijah. May the God strike me down, even kill me at this time tomorrow, if I have not killed you as you have killed them. Sitting here, if I was Elijah, I'd say, Jezebel, cool down. You killing me? I don't have to do anything. This is my God. But sometimes it shocks you. It shocks you because it makes no sense. How could this man start running? Elijah was afraid, fled for his life, went to Beersheba and Judah, and he left his servant there. Then he went alone in the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. Does that sound very familiar? How can he do that? I'm surprised even God tolerates this, Can you imagine that? If I was God, I'll say, I can't even understand. Yesterday, you did the impossible. You did something that was outstanding. I came as fire, burned that sacrifice, licked the water that you poured all over the place, and you destroyed everyone. And today you're saying, let me die. Because of what? Because one woman in a corner is telling, I'll kill you. Is this who you are? But God is astounding. If I was there, I would have burned Elijah down. So, suppose I tell one of my doctors and say, I give you authority for so many things, You can do everything. And see, sitting in the corner and cry, why? I don't know what to do. I gave you authority, right? Or for example, imagine, I give my wife a car and my driver, and I tell her, why don't you drive up to Cochin? And she says, I'm so tired, I can't walk that far. It doesn't make any sense. Why do you want to walk? After haven't I given you a car? I give you a good one, a driver, and everything you want. And why are you crying and saying, I'm too tired to walk? It's something like this. Does it make any sense at all? But why does it happen? Believe me, after great victories, sometimes you find Satan come and knock you off with a breeze. All Elijah needed was one woman's voice. Tomorrow, I'm going to finish you. Like looking at this, we'll say, come. Let's see what happens. We'll meet in the same Mount Carmel, the place where the fire came. Jezebel, come up and meet me. He was so scared. Then he came to a cave where he spent the night. But the Lord said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? And a voice said, what are you doing here, Elijah? And he replied, I have zealously served the Lord. See, this is one problem. Entitlement. Straight to God. God, I have served you. But the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars. They killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left. Now they're trying to kill me also. Then the Lord said, go back the way you came. Travel to the wilderness to Damascus. When you go there, anoint Hazael, the king of Aram, Run that video, please. Sit crying. Sometimes it's not wallowing, it's just crying. I am so sad because you rejected me. You were not there for me when Jezebel said that. God, you could have made Jezebel dumb. What a good idea, no? Why didn't you think of that? I don't know what your mind will work in. We'll cry and we'll cry and we cry because we feel we are entitled to cry. We are entitled because we feel, Lord, I have been reading the Bible so sincerely. Look at my husband. He doesn't even read the Bible and he looks so happy, Right? Look at him. Look at the other guy in church. What does he do for church? I don't know. Look at me. I've been working for you so long. I've been praying for you. I've been fasting for you. Put the whole list before God. And you deserted me? My kid has not done well in school. My son is not married. My husband doesn't love me the way I should love him. He forgot my birthday. I don't know what else he did. I'm not sure. But the bottom line is, I am so full of self-pity. God, why have you rejected me when I have been so faithful? And God finds it such a challenging thing often to make us understand this truth, right? Right? Very familiar picture, right? A lot of people can identify this. Just yesterday, I was telling to some, slightly raised my voice, a consultant, and started crying. And I said, why do you use it as a weapon? Don't say that. It hurts us. I said, somehow we can't cry. But the fact what I'm trying to say is that all my postgraduate girls, it's a problem. You tell something and they're ready to cry, Just telling, that's about a girl's picture. Guys can throw tantrums and the women will cry. But the bottom line, both of it is self-pity, So look at the chain of events, a great spiritual victory, Jezebel's threat, fear and anguish. One small thing, it's all it needs to upset people. And sometimes it's so trivial, when you look back later, you wonder, why did this happen at all? He runs away from a mountaintop experience. Sometimes the greatest experience in the Bible are mountaintops. Have you realized that? Top of Mount Sinai, top of the mountain of Transfiguration, top of Mount Carmel. But you can't sit on the mountaintop forever. You got to come down to earth. And you got to start moving with people. You remember the disciples? Mountaintop experience comes down and they're fighting among each other. Who is going to be the greatest in God's kingdom? Right side, left side, mountaintop experience. Moses comes down from the mountain. What does he see? People are worshipping the calf. But we can't live on the mountaintop. God gives us mountaintop experiences to be useful down on earth. We had this beautiful friend of yours. I'll never forget that illustration he gave. I think he was from Melbourne. He said, you come into the church to receive water like a sponge. You go out into the world and squeeze that water out. Come back and refill again. You clean outside what you received in the church. You use it for cleaning. You don't do that, it starts stinking. How does a wet sponge stay back and enjoy forever and live in the mountaintop? You come down. You squeeze the sponge. You clean other people. You become useful. You come back again, refill the sponge, and you go out. You keep that sponge forever, it stings. And this is the problem with so many of us, right? And he runs away, prays for death. God doesn't give him. The amount of prayers when we make when we are in self-pity, if God heard all of them, none of us would be alive, Sometimes I have had. I'll be having this argument with the wife, say, I wish I was dead, And God says, granted. That went too much. I died many times, See, very often we can self-pity say the most ridiculous things in life, Seriously. Tell some of the most ridiculous things. Here he cries for death. God didn't do that. God actually comes to him and tells him, go back. You can go and make Hazael king. It's beautiful. I just love God for that. All these kids with their tantrums. And he takes at each one of us patiently and say, I wish you'll grow up, that I can use you in a more beautiful way. God versus Elijah, where was the problem? Never God, right? Never God. Okay. So the problem with all the time is, this is not what I expected from you. It's not just with God. When we get hurt with people, it's the same problem. This is not what I expected from you. Right? And this morning, we are going to spend let's look at another person, Ruth. Ruth was the wife of, I don't know his name of, he was later the wife of Boaz. But before that, she was married and she would go and leave Israel and go to the Moabite country because her husband wanted to be there. And then Ruth has now lost her husband. She lost her sons. She's got 2 daughter-in-laws. One of them decides to go back. she's coming back with Naomi, her mother-in-law. I'm sorry, Naomi is the mother. Ruth is the daughter-in-law. Naomi has lost her husband and her 2 sons, and she comes back. And when he comes to Bethlehem, the entire town was excited by the arrival. Is this really Naomi? The woman asked. And what does Naomi say? Don't call me Naomi. She responded, instead call me Mara. The Lord has made life very bitter for me. Self-pity. Naomi has just decided, I want you to know that I am the cursed woman. I want you to know that I've got nothing to be excited. God has rejected me. God has let me down. Where was the problem? God or Naomi, right? Naomi was wallowing self-pity. She lost everything and she had come back to Jerusalem. Jerusalem was a city of God. Naomi was crying because she left a country of the Canaanites, the Moabite country, and come back to the house of God, where God would turn back everything she lost. And she says over here, she could not understand that even though she had made the mistake of leaving Judah, going to a neighboring country, God was going to use this experience to ensure that the family would be in the lineage of Jesus Christ. God never told them to leave. They never inquired of God. There was a famine in the land. They didn't bother, it was Moabite territory. They didn't bother, it was Sodom or Gomorrah. They felt this is a better place to live because there is no money. Many often we choose a decision based on that. We leave this country, go to other countries for money, and everything gets destroyed. You lose your character, your children are gone crazy, and you curse God. The problem that Naomi had was they had taken a decision which is not from God, and they had to walk out on God. The spirit of self-pity is always associated with the following. First, the sinful spirit of entitlement. I. It's I. I need more respect. I need more love. I need more honor. I need more gratitude. It's I all the time. The feeling that I deserve more than what I receive because I feel I'm entitled. I forget what I have is God's gift for me. And if it's God's gift, I'm seriously not entitled to anything at all. That's why it's so important that we ask God this question, Lord, can you tell me why am I going through this? You know, in the book of James it says, consider it pure joy, brethren, when you go through trials of different types. It ends up in saying that you may receive perseverance, that you may lack nothing. And the next verse says, if any of you lacks wisdom, ask God for wisdom, who gives it to you freely. Most of our thing is to pass exams. It is the wisdom to understand why you're going through this trial. Ask God for wisdom. God, why am I feeling this way? Lord, speak to me. Why am I going through the difficult time? Rather than getting upset with God, you have to first understand this fundamental. God never changes. If there is a problem, it's always me. Most of the time, it's because of our own failure to obey God. Sometimes God uses us to fulfill His purpose for greater glory. I want you to know this. This is the Spirit that dwells in you. The Spirit of Jesus Christ that never had self-pity. Look at this. It says that although He was God, you think you're greater than God and Master, that we should be entitled to more than Him. Philippians says, although He is God, He did not think equality of God something to be grasped. And He took upon Himself the nature of a servant. And He even humbled Himself to death on the cross. He didn't cry out and say, God, what are you doing? I was the darling of heaven. Why are you putting me through this? Lord, I'm used to much better life. Why are you putting me through this? People are calling me a person whose father is unknown. They curse me. They spit on me. They pull at my beard. They do not give me food and water. They stone me. And God, where are you? No, nothing. He took upon Himself the mantle of a servant. That's what you said He had to do when He was on earth. If our Father, our mentor, our teacher, our Lord and Master got no love from anyone, His own disciples would desert Him, walk out on Him, would curse Him. There is no place where somebody showed love except Mary, who when she would break that alabaster and pour it out in love for her, I don't even see a place where Jesus experienced love, kindness, praise, or anything. And when we are his followers, are we entitled to something more than this, Self-pity always leads to bitterness against God. It always leads to a barren Christian life. And this morning, you have to decide. You have to make this choice. Do you want to be like this? Do you want to be in a field that is so full that you may say, God, I want to be a source of so much blessing that I can bring a harvest 1,000 upon 1,000, or that you can live a barren life of self-pity?